Hello, my name is Matthew Jackson, and in today's video, I want to talk to those of you who just graduated from the 8th grade and who will be in the next school year start their freshman year in high school. I want to speak specifically to incoming high school freshmen. Now, I'd like to give you some tips and advice about your high school, your next 4 years in high school. But instead of me talking to you about what to expect at your freshman orientation and what it's going to be like on the first day of school and how you're going to navigate your way around the big school building that you'll be in, which is probably much bigger than the middle school that you're at, I want to take a different direction. What I want to ask you to do, instead of thinking about the first day of school of your freshman year, fast forward with me 4 years and 9 months at your high school graduation. Think about you being in your cap and gown at your high school graduation, commencement ceremony, okay? At your high school graduations, you're going to receive a program. And all the kids who graduate in that graduating class, your names will be listed in that program, usually on the last 2 or 3 pages or whatever, okay? So let's say your graduating class has 300 kids, 300 graduates, 300 kids graduating from high school, and all 350 are listed on that program. Now, there's some other areas of the program. Let's talk about the beginning of the program. The beginning of the program is going to have a list of speakers. One of those people who are going to speak is called the valedictorian. Now, in your 8th grade class, when you had your 8th grade graduation, your school may or may not have recognized a valedictorian. It just depends on the school system and the school. But for the sake of discussion, if you don't know what a valedictorian is, the valedictorian is the best student of the 350 kids that graduated in that graduating class. The valedictorian is the best of those 350. The next student that may or may not be recognized, again, this is depending on the school and the school district, is a salutatorian. The salutatorian is the second best student of the 350. Now, in my class, when I graduated from high school, we didn't recognize the salutatorian, just the valedictorian. Then there's going to be some other students recognized, about 35. Half of them are going to be recognized for graduating with highest honors, and then the other half is going to be recognized for graduating with honors. So that's above and beyond the 350 kids that are acknowledged on the program as graduating. These other kids are going to receive special recognition. Now, let's talk about how those students got to be recognized. If a group of students are recognized for graduating with highest honors and valedictorian and salutatorian, ask yourself, well, how did they get to be there? How did a valedictorian get to be a valedictorian? Do you think the faculty and administration of the school just drew a name out of the hat and said, we'll make this person the valedictorian? No. There's a reason the valedictorian is the valedictorian. And there's a reason kids who graduate with honors and highest honors get special recognition on the program. And this is what I want to talk to you about. And the way they got on the program is they use a system in high school. They also use the same system in college called the grade point average, commonly known as the GPA. The GPA, or grade point average, is how the faculty and administration of a school tracks and evaluates the performance of a given student. So, let's talk about the GPA. How is that done? How does that work? Well, let me show you. The first thing they got to do is they got to put a value to a letter grade. So let's say you make an A in a course. Well, that A is a 4-point value. The B is a 3-point value. C is 2. D is 1. And of course, F is 0. Okay, so they put values to letter grades. So let's say your first report card, your first grading period comes out. All right, and let's say you're taking, those are your basic, here, let me covering that up. There you go. You have English, math, science, history, foreign language, PE, elective, and elective, okay? So those are your grades for that grading period. And of course, then what they do is they, again, put a point value to the letter grade. Then they add up all 8 classes. They add up the point values for all 8 classes, and it comes to 26. All right, so you add up all those point values, it comes to 26. Then they divide by 8. And whatever the answer is to that 8 is the grade point average. So let me get my fingers out of the way here. So for this grading period, you see the grade point average is 3.25. So for that grading period, you make those grades here, that's your GPA for that grading period. And of course, the next grading period, you have another GPA and it compounds and they keep averaging it out. Okay, so that's how they determine grade point averages. Okay, now some school systems don't use letter grades on report cards, they use numeric values. So anyway, the number of values here in this corner here, it translates to A and B's and C's and so forth. And again, the same principle still applies. They add a point value there and it adds up and they get your GPA that way. So that's how GPAs are calculated. So what they do, your school and your administration, what they'll do is they'll say there's 350 kids graduating in your graduating class. What they're going to do is they're going to take all 350 kids and make a list. And at the very top, the kid that has the best GPA is the valedictorian. And then the kid that has the next best GPA is the salutatorian. Okay, and so they do it by GPA. And the guy with the lowest GPA is going to graduate 350. He's going to be at the bottom of the list. So the school administration and the faculty, they look upon you students as competing against each other. They keep score on you with the GPA system. So you need to be aware of the fact that they're going to track your academic performance using the GPA system. And then they rank the students according to your GPA. Now, let's talk about why it is important that you have a high GPA, or at least have the GPA as high as you possibly can make it. The reason you want a high GPA is because the higher your GPA is, the more options you will have at your disposal at the time you graduate from high school. Okay. Now, right now, most of you are 14, 15, or 13, incoming freshmen, and you probably have no idea what you want to do with your life after you graduate from high school. You probably haven't even thought about college. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. You have no idea what you want to do. But here's the deal. The higher your GPA is, the more options you will have at your disposal. So then when you do choose your career path, you'll have a good GPA to back you up. Let me give you an example. If you graduate in the top 10% of your class in the state of Texas, did you know you get admission? You're admitted to any college, any state college in the state of Texas. Okay, you've got automatic admission. You've already passed the test. You still have to take your SAT test, but the SAT test doesn't have any bearing on the admission. Okay, you've already passed the admission requirements simply by graduating in the top 10% of your class. So just doing that gives you options right there. Also, when you apply for scholarships, some scholarship programs won't award you a scholarship unless your high school GPA was at a certain level. So let's say, the end of your senior year, you all of a sudden decide you want to be an electrical engineer or you want to be a vet or whatever your career path, and you want to apply for some scholarships. and then you find out, well, you had to have a 3.5 to qualify for those scholarships, and you look at your GPA and it was a 3.2, you're going to look back and have regrets. Man, if I just worked a little bit harder, I could have got that high GPA. I could have got high enough GPA to qualify for those scholarships. So you don't want to be in a position where you're going to look back and regret that you didn't have it as high as you could have had it. Even if you go to technical or vocational school and you don't go to college, still having a high GPA still has its value. If you join the military, joining the military still has its value if for having a high GPA, for you want to join the military. Let me tell you why. When you go to a recruiter and inquire about any branch of the service, the first thing the recruiter is going to do is have you take what is called an Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. ASVAB is the acronym. The ASVAB is an aptitude test that basically makes an assessment of how smart you are. Okay? Based on the score of that test, they will be able to assess how many programs in the military that you'll qualify for. The higher the test score, the more programs in the military that you qualify for. So if you're a good student throughout high school, have a high GPA, that will in turn affect your scores on your ASVAB test. Even if you go to the workforce, let's say you're going to go straight to work and not go to school. Well, on a lot of job applications, they're going to ask you where you went to school. Some job applications do ask for they want to know what your GPA was. So in your early 20s, early to mid, basically in your 20s, when you're establishing your career path and deciding which route you want to go, your GPA from your high school has a way of following you. Now, once you've been in the workforce for a while and you're in your 30s and 40s, then that GPA becomes less significant. But in your 20s, your GPA can make a difference. So again, you want to have it as high as you possibly can have it. Now, there's a few tips I want to give you about how to have a high GPA, or at least get it as high as you possibly can. Set a goal for yourself. Most kids with average intelligence that have half a brain that are attending a public school should be able to make a 3.0 GPA. Okay? Getting a 3.0 GPA in a public school is more a matter of determination and attitude and willingness and putting forth an effort than it is really being smart and intelligent. But set a goal for yourself. Now, for those of you who made A's and B's in middle school and elementary school and you've done well academically, you might want to set a little higher standard for yourself. Maybe set a 3.5 GPA. For those of you that made C's and D's and barely got by, set a goal of 3.0. Okay? So, anyway, set an academic goal for yourself. Another thing you need to do is you're going to have your courses subdivided into two basic categories. Your hardcore academic courses like math, science, social studies, and English, okay, foreign language. Those are going to be your hardcore academic courses. Then you're going to have your elective courses and your soft courses like PE. So on those soft courses, those elective courses, where you're capable of making an A, and making an A is quite easy. All you have to do, for instance, for PE. Getting an A in a PE is a cinch. All you have to do is suit up and show up for roll call. That's it. And then maybe play some games, and that's it. It's very easy to get an A in PE, so there's no excuse for getting a B or a C in PE. Other courses like art, band, theater, woodshop, those are easy courses that you should be able to make A's in. So you got to get your A's in on those courses where you're capable of making A's. So on your hardcore academic courses, making an A might be a little bit more difficult. So anyway, those soft courses and getting an A make a difference with your grade point average. Another good tip is to develop good study habits. Now, there are a lot of YouTube videos on how to develop study habits. You could, how to memorize, how to take notes when you listen to a lecture, how to identify the key points, how to read a chapter, when you get a reading assignment, how to identify the key points, how to take notes, how to take tests, how to ask the right questions, stuff like that. So a lot of kids that make good grades, it's not necessarily because they're super smart. They just develop good study habits and good learning techniques. So if you learn those habits and techniques, sometimes that can help. Academics is a lot like athletics. There are kids that can run faster, and jump higher than others. And I remember when I was younger, I wasn't the best athlete. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'6" tall, but I wasn't the best basketball player, and I had to put a lot of effort into becoming a good basketball player. I had to do a lot of exercises and drills and things that basketball players do. I worked on my free throw shooting and jump shots, and all that effort paid off. Okay, I became a better basketball player because I put time into it. Okay, and put effort into it. Now, did I ever make the NBA and become a professional basketball player? No. I didn't even make Division I NCAA. Okay, but I was a better basketball player than I was before. That's the main thing. So that's the same thing in academics. Some of you may not make the top 10% of your class. You may not make valedictorian. But if you put forth the effort, at least you'll be better than you were before, So why settle for a 2.5 GPA when you can get a 3.0 with just a little extra effort? And that 3.0, believe me, will pay off for you. Okay. When you're at home, designate a specific time and place where you do your studies. Turn off the TV, turn off the computer, and have a designated time and place where you do your studies, so you develop those habits. That's a good study habit. That's one of them. Keep short accounts with your teachers. So in the middle of the grading period, go to your teacher and ask your teacher, if the report cards were to come out today, what would my grade be? And if it's a low grade, you still got the rest of the grading period to correct that and maybe get your grade up. Okay. Now, every high school student is always going to have at least one or two teachers that they're not going to connect with and they're not going to get along with very well. Okay. So I'm sure you guys will have the same problem, but most teachers are dedicated professionals. And if you let your teacher know that you care and that you want to make good grades, when you make a bad grade on a test, take that test to the teacher. Where did I go wrong? Try to, take that test personally to heart and, learn from it. Learn from your mistakes. All teachers, I believe, designate one day of the week where you can go to them after school and do tutorials. That's a perfect thing. So just showing up for those tutorials, letting your teacher know that you care about your grade. If you do poorly on a test, ask if you can take a makeup test. In most cases, they won't give you a makeup test. They'll say, sorry, Charlie, that's it. That's your grade. But you asking to take a makeup test indicates to them that you care. Okay. Also ask for extra credit assignments. Sometimes they'll give you that. So most teachers will appreciate the fact that you're interested and you want to learn. So that's a good thing. So most teachers won't brush you off. They'll be very receptive to your gestures and inquiries about your grades. Now, for those of you who have done well in school, in middle school and elementary school, you've made A's and B's, you might want to consider taking accelerated courses. In some school districts, they call them AP courses. When I was in school, they called them major works courses. So I don't know what they what the term they use in your school district, but basically the way an accelerated course works, it's where if you take that course and you pass it, then you get college credits. Okay, so you can earn college credits in high school, which that's not a bad thing. Okay, also that affects your GPA because remember I showed you the scale, the point scale. Well, in an accelerated course, that A is now valued at a 5, and a B is valued at a 4, and C a 3. So in other words, taking an accelerated course will also elevate your GPA. So for those of you who haven't done well, maybe you're making B's and C's and D's, you might want to approach the accelerated courses carefully. Talk to your guidance counselors, talk to your parents about that. You don't want to bite off any more than you can chew. The accelerated courses are very intense. They move at a much more rapid pace. The teachers are going to be less patient with you if you're slow. When the assignments are due, they're due. You don't want to have late assignments, so it's a little more stringent. They turn it up a notch on the accelerated courses, but for those of you that have done well in the past, you might want to consider that option. Be willing to make sacrifices for your GPA. You may have a friend that say, hey, you want to come with us to the mall and hang out? Yeah, we're going to go skateboarding down at the park, and you've got a big test coming up, okay? You might have to say, well, I'd love to go to the park with you or hang out with you at the mall, but I got a test I got to prepare for, and I want to make an A on it. Okay, and so you may have to make some sacrifices in your social life. Yep, you may have to do less texting, and you might have to spend less time on Facebook and social media and Twitter. That's sometimes you're going to have to curtail that, but it's no different when you're a grown-up. You have to prioritize and make choices when you're a grown-up. So yeah, and you're going to have classmates. They're going to tell you, oh man, you want to have a high GPA. Oh man, what difference does it make? As long as you pass, that's all that matters. You're going to have some of your classmates and some of your peers tell you that. Oh man, as long as you pass, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter about a GPA. You'll have people like that. Okay, and you got to be prepared. You say, listen, yeah, I know I could just pass, but I want to have as many options open to me as available when I graduate. So yeah, you're going to have to make sacrifices, and be prepared for some of your friends to think that you're a geek or a nerd. So yeah, it's going to have a cost. Having said that, try to hang out with those of your peers who do have high GPAs. Seek out friendships with those guys. You know how to find out whether or not your peers have a GPA, high GPA or not? What you do is after every grading period, they publish an honor roll. Okay, a minimum of all A's and just two B's and the rest A's. That's enough to get you on the honor roll. So if you have one B and all A's or all A's, you'll get on the honor roll. Okay, so go find out who's on the honor roll. Then you'll find out who has the high GPAs. Hang out with those guys. You are who you roll with. So get you a crew together that appreciates having good grades and academic excellence. So that's a thing to think about. Also, if your parents hold you accountable for your grades, I know my parents did. They wanted to know how many A's, how many B's, how many C's, D's, and F's, yada, yada, yada. And they want to evaluate your performance and issue rewards. Have them do it on the GPA system and ask your parents, well, listen, if I have a 3.0 GPA, would this be enough to get you off my case? For those of you that are really smart and make high grades, 3.5 or 4, 3.8 might be a higher bar. So set the bar according to what you're capable of doing, but get a good night's sleep and eat a good breakfast. You want to be sharp and alert in the classroom. That affects your GPA. The bottom line to this whole thing, this whole presentation that I'm giving you kids, is take ownership of your GPA. They're going to keep a score on your GPA whether you're aware of it or care or not. So you might as well take ownership of the GPA and try to make it as high as you possibly can. And remember, most of the limitations that we face are the limitations that we put on ourselves. You can make a much higher GPA than you think you can if you make the effort. So, having said all that, good luck in your high school. And until next time, ciao.